This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Natisa yemincha tivla'im ha'yaretz. You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. So on the one hand, this is a great oynesh, the Mitzrayim were swallowed by the ground. But on the other hand, Rashi says, Mikan shazachu l'kfura. From here, they merited burial, b'schar sha'amru, and the reward that they said, Hashem HaTzadik. Because they said, Hashem HaTzadik, v'ani avami harasham, they were zeicha to burial. Why was that the reward? That because they articulated Hashem HaTzadik, they were zeicha to burial. We find earlier in Chumash that somebody performed a good deed, and they too were zeicha to burial, and that is Yefes. Remember when Noach was laying uncovered, and Shem and Yefes came, and the pasuk says Vayikach Shem vayefes, and Rashi says, why doesn't it say Vayikchu? They both took the sheet. So Rashi says because Shem strengthened himself and was more energetic in performing the mitzvah, therefore it says Vayikach Shem, he was the primary fulfiller of the mitzvah. But interestingly, Chazal tell us that in the merit that Shem and Yefes covered their father, so Shem was zoicha to the mitzvah of tzitzis, and Yefes was zocha that his descendants had kavura, they were buried in the war of Gog u'Magog. Again we see that because Yefes did a mitzvah, he was zocha to kavura, but Shem was zocha to something better, he was zocha to the mitzvah of tzitzis. So let's try to understand, why was it in both of these scenarios that because of doing a good deed, they were zeicha to burial. So the Avnei Neizer of Sachachav, the Heilige Avnei Neizer, the father of the Shem Shmuel, he says that there's a difference between somebody who performs a mitzvah genuinely, the pnimius, internally, and someone who performs a mitzvah only externally, he's just going through the motions. Someone who performs a mitzvah internally, in a genuine way, will definitely conduct and perform the mitzvah with more energy and will be misametz more in the mitzvah than someone who just performs the mitzvah externally. That's why Shem, he did the mitzvah with more energy. He was a misametz yoiser because he was doing the mitzvah b'pnimiyusa, in his inside. As opposed to Cham, who was doing it more, as opposed to Yefes, who was doing it more superficially. Therefore, Shem, who did the mitzvah intrinsically, he was zocheh to something intrinsic, not only for his external body, but for his soul as well. He was zocheh to the mitzvah of tzitzis, which we know, la'asad lavai, will allow a person to bask in the glory of the Shekhinah. But Yefes did the mitzvah externally, superficially, so therefore his external self, his superficial self, his guf, was zocheh to kfura. Likewise, says the Shem Shmuel, yes, the Mitzrayim, they got up at their press conference and they said the right things. They said Hashem HaTzadik. They articulated the right message. They gave a nice political statement. But Moshe said after that, Yodati ki terem tiron mipnei Hashem Elokim. I know that they don't really fear God yet. So it was an external statement, it was a superficial statement, and therefore their superficial and external selves also merited to be buried. So we should learn that when we perform mitzvos, we should do so not only externally because everyone else is doing it, to do the right thing or to say the right thing, but it should be in our heart and in our mind as well. Wishing everyone an amazing Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.